All right, everyone, another round of tariffs may go forth on China, sweeping degrees of tariffs. According to Mnuchin, Trump has him trotted out once in a while to play basically the economic Kissinger game. And that's really what this is about with his with his tariff wars. It's almost like a game of chicken. You saw like with the Mexican deal, which I will discuss separately because, of course, it turns out, elements of the deal were actually a month old. But there are caveats to that don't work poorly for Trump. I'll explain that later. It is a major story. As far as China goes, though, what's happened is this. Trump levies the opening volley of tariffs, billions of dollars worth. China responds in kind. What happens to the two respective countries? When they autopsy what happened to their economies for the subsequent weeks, what happened? The U.S. markets got shaken a little, and then they recovered. Ultimately, nothing else happened. For the most part, other than some manufacturers grumbling, things are situation normal. Everything's more or less under control. In China, their slide continues. They freak out. The thing is, China's so centrally planned that when something little happens, the Chinese government that's gotten used to uninterrupted huge levels of growth gets very nervous indeed. You'll remember years ago when they had their backslide, when their stock market began to deflate, because they keep pumping up their markets artificially. It's a heavily speculated system, as all centralized systems are. The problems that everyone blames on capitalism, speculation, and so forth, they're not due to capitalism. They're due to market interventionism. That's what causes the boom and bust cycle. It's not caused by a free market. It's caused by the too little free market. A totally free market wouldn't do that. It'd compensate almost immediately. Trying to centrally plan it means that you have some periods in which you're doing very well, and some periods in which you get fucked. In a truly free market economy, you're going to tend to have more sustained growth, maybe lower level because you're not making it hyper efficient, but then when it slides back a little bit, it's nowhere near as bad. And so you get less of that. That's why I believe in as free a market as possible with very, very few constraints. There are certain acceptable constraints that can be put on economic things. Most of them are not acceptable. That's the problem. It should be like 90% free market. Instead, here it's like 60% free market. There it's like maybe 10% free market. And so they get hit harder when they slide back. The illusion of never-ending growth is a uniquely communistic sort of concept in the state of China. The funny part is, in order to prop that illusion up, they had to open up extremely free market little pockets within their country for certain industries and stuff. They almost like a Swedish model or something. Like, the energy sector is like, yeah, you can put oil everywhere. Oil's great, but at the same time, you got to build solar panels or something like that. It really looks a lot like like Scandinavia in that one aspect. China, though, looked at its own economic markers and said, oh my God, growth is slowing down and this manufacturing sector took a hit. Oh my God, quick, pour money on the problem. Quick, open up the spigot as much as possible. Fucking flood the economy and keep that growth going. Because China is a fucking paper tiger. It is the illusion of strength. That's all it is. It's not due to unique grassroots, organically grown Chinese industry. It's due to foreign investment and speculation. And also, it's funny. I love it. One bit of umbrage I have to take with especially the European community. People saying the U.S. is being a bully. The U.S. is trying to overthrow the current order. The U.S. is abandoning free trade. China has uniquely intervened in every possible aspect of its own economy, even when it overlaps other people's economic interests for decades now. They are the main currency manipulator. They manipulate the currency. They manipulate the value of goods. They hide data selectively. They intervene in every industry at the micromanagement level. Or they just say fuck everybody and they make a total free market zone within China where you can basically own slaves if you want to. China's the one doing things like that. China's the one that rams its neighbors' fishing vessels, grabs up a chunk of ocean and starts fortifying it like something out of fucking Wind Waker or something along those lines. They're the ones doing that, not the United States. Trump just decided, hey, if China keeps doing this, getting one over on the entire world, eventually, yeah, they will be the main world economy. Well, that's not a great thing. The U.S. is asserting hegemony over an economic order largely prefaced on the United States beating on people for 100 years. That's basically what we're maintaining now. If you think that it's bullying, I would think that the military adventurism is what we've done as far as bullying anyone. China has done a little bit of that too. A lot of people, it's funny, another thing that people are woefully ignorant on is Cold War history. They think that the Cold War was basically the United States invading countries over and over. They don't know anything about all of the times that all the communistic states in Asia attacked one another over whose ideology was more puristically Marxist. China, Vietnam, Pol Pot's Cambodia, the Soviets, groups within the Middle East, Afghanistan, and so forth. The Eastern world would have imploded anyway. The U.S. didn't have to invade anyone. It was dumb that we even bothered because they kept invading each other all the time. We didn't need to lift a finger. Heavily centralized systems destabilize. They don't work. Leftism is a failure. Authoritarianism inevitably strangles itself. Unfortunately, usually the revolutionary movement that crops up is another group of authoritarians. As we see in Venezuela, one socialist who wants to kill people and be a dictator, another socialist who wants to kill people and kind of be a dictator but sucks Western cock instead of Eastern cock, is the one that wants to rise up to power. This is the only difference between Maduro and Guaido. They have the same fucking economic ideas for the most part. Guaido just says, yeah, Exxon can come in instead of Gazprom, or that's the only difference. The people of Venezuela are blind to this fact that they're both a couple of socialists. It's funny. But it's good to use tariffs in this manner. It's funny because each time Trump does this, he secures victory, but each time everyone predicts that he'll fail. Oh my God, Trump can't do this to German automotive manufacturers. It'll never work. In 24 hours it works. Trump will never get a deal inked with Canada and Mexico. Well, we got that deal. Now there's another deal with Mexico. Of course, with the former USMCA, Congress is still sitting there not ratifying it. Leave it to Congress to even obstruct a new trade deal that gives the United States at least a lot more than it had before. Oh my God, the Republicans practically defending the existence of NAFTA on such a thing. Isn't that funny? After they complained for several decades about the Democrats and Clinton and NAFTA and this, that, and the other thing, now you have an overhaul, a reform package designed to get rid of that and replace it with something more palatable for maybe a more modern economic situation because it's not the 90s anymore. And Congress, the GOP won't even back that. It's coming from a Republican president. Mitch McConnell should be ashamed. I think it's the House Democrats at this point obstructing even more, but something has to be done. Congress needs to get off its ass and do its job. It's difficult to get them to do that, but as far as Trump threatening tariffs and stuff, it seems to be working. He's 3 for 4 at the moment. China's the only one left standing. It's going to take longer. They're the second largest economy. They're a major trading partner. They have certain abilities that Mexico or maybe Germany don't have. Of course, being a nuclear state comes to mind. Having a functioning navy comes to mind. Not a great one, but a function. They got an aircraft carrier. Sometimes it doesn't even sink. Nothing wrong with China looking out for its own interests, but then why is there anything wrong with the U.S. doing the same? I keep hearing all these Europeans harp endlessly about how the United States is such a big bully. Well, if you had the same situation and you weren't willing to take similar steps, not war, I'm talking about, intervening in other people's affairs when they overlap with your own, asserting yourself. If you're not willing to do that, you wouldn't be in power for very long now, would you? It's funny because it seems like some of those people would rather be under the yoke of China than as part of this sort of Western world in which Trump vaguely asserts U.S. interests after years of its decline because people keep picking away at free trade with the U.S. by taking advantage of the fact that we never use tariffs. And so they feel entitled to put a 2% tariff on this and a 3% tariff on that and to block this import and to shut off that export at a whim and to micromanage every aspect of their increasingly socialized economies to our detriment and expect us to do and say nothing. That's basically the problem. And China was the worst offender. Mexico has done this. Canada has been doing this. Western Europe, by far, other than China, has been doing this. Why should we sit there and deal with it? We're simply trying to create a world in which, at least among the Western states, there is free trade. And the only way to ensure that is to keep some of the major players that aren't part of the Western world from abusing the system too. To keep things at marginally, fundamentally working levels. That's what Trump is trying to accomplish. It's not even bullying. If he were to say, oh, well, we're going to invade a country because of our economic interest, or more blood for oil, yeah, I'd oppose that. We're not invading anyone. We're simply saying, hey, you tariff everything that we import to you, everything that we give to you is tariffed. We're going to act in kind. That's about all. Peace out.